This is the Unscripted Podcast. So guess what? Did you see what was in the back of my truck?
There was some trim or something on it.
Well, the question is would you stop for $21 and pick it up on the side of the road?
Let me tell you a story. You know what surveyor stakes are?
Yeah.
You know, you put them down like...
Yeah, they got them in our gym right now because they're working on building the building, but they got them. But they also have to show like there's a couple commercial buildings they have to show like where
property boundaries,
the easement of your driveway, and our people just keep plowing over these couple of stakes.
My wife still reminds me. I'll just say remind of me stopping and picking up the box of sticks because I pulled over one time in a box. Now this is 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. So a bundle of surveyor stakes are like $3, $4 now, you know. And so I pulled over and I was like, that's a box of surveyor stakes. So I pulled over and I picked up a box of surveyor stakes on the road, and she was like, what are you doing? I was like, it's a box, it's something in that. And I was like, I think I know what it is. I picked it up. It was still in the little webbing. I mean, it just fell off of
somebody's truck.
Yeah, I mean, like I used those things all the time when I was staking foundations and stuff like that.
That poor guy, he gets there, he's like, now, Jerry, I know I pick your things up.
I'm telling you.
I thought you were supposed to get the surveyor stakes.
I threw it away. We stopped at Taco Bell, but I got them. Didn't you see me get them? Well, I did.
Yeah, so I'm taking Carson to on the way to he's gonna work with Brad today. We're on the way in, and I said, "Look at that, Carson." He goes, "Yeah, them's 2x4s." And so we stopped, and there was two brand new looking 2x4s right before you turn left on the Gandy.
Off of y'all's road.
Off of the Gandy onto
59.
Yeah, on the 59 right there at the ramp.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go the
it?
Huh?
It depends on how fast you drive, which one's faster.
That's right.
They're both the same distance. I don't know how they work that out, but if you drive the same speed, you know, because
it depends on who's in front of you.
Yeah, if there's a road tractor and he's toting steel or something like that, and he's just poking tail, I'll go down and hit the acceleration ramp, you know.
Right.
But if not, I'm gonna just take the clover leaf.
Yeah, and that's the. But anyways, I thought Carson goes, yeah. He said that's gold. Then we get on the actual ramp, and there's another one. So I got 3 2x4 by like they're at least 10s. I think they're 12s. But here's the thing is like, you know, those two that we picked up, they even had tire marks on them. People would run over them. And
they still work the same.
Oh yeah, it's just black marks. But it's like, well, if you saw $21 laying there on the road, would you just ran over it or would you have stopped? And so somebody not only saw it, but they ran over it. And I just think, you know, this we picked a difficult conversation to talk about today, but looking at what's the value of something.
Yeah, I pulled in our parking lot one day, and I keep this in my Bible all the time because I pulled in the parking lot one morning, and I said, I think that's a $1 bill in there. So I stopped, I got out and looked, and sure enough, it was $1. So guess what I did? I spent the next 20 minutes looking to see if there's any more in there. Because I figured if there's one,
right,
there might be another one. What if the 100 is laid, because it's same color as the grass.
Yeah. So
I spent all that time, so I said, you know what? I'm going to stick this in my Bible so that I always remember there's greater treasure in here if I'm just willing to take the time to do it.
That's right. And searching it out. And so we're in the wake of Roe versus Wade, we're going to talk about mamas and we're going to talk about babies today on this podcast. And
Misty Dawn. Does your mama listen to the podcast?
Sometimes. I don't know. She doesn't give me feedback if she does. So I don't think she does.
Mine's the same way. She may listen to it every week, but I never know whether she likes it or not.
Yeah.
Misty Dawn. You know what that's special about? So my name is Christopher Keith. November 7th, 1981, I wiggled into this world. The hospital I was born in ain't even there anymore. But
is that old, folks?
When I was born, no, there's just nobody to support it. You know,
right.
Just such a rural area. But when I was born, you had to have 2 names. If you wanted to have a name at the hospital, you had to pick out a boy name and a girl name. You know why? They didn't have all the, what's that called? you look at the baby.
Ultrasound.
Ultrasound, sonogram, ultrasound, all that technology didn't exist. Or if it did, it may have been into big cities, but it won't into mountains of Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was born, Mama had 2 names picked out for me: Christopher Keith and Misty Dawn.
Misty Dawn. Misty Dawn Donovan.
Yep, Queen of the Trailer Park. And so here's the thing, is that in our lifetime, we don't do that anymore. Technology, well, it's validated something that God's told us all along. So now we can see babies in the womb. We can watch them move. We can watch them respond. We can watch them move based on light sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
And we've put the lie to death, a lie that Satan spun 50 years ago now, almost. And that was Roe versus Wade. And that we could spin it to the fact that was really not a life in there. Well, we know that's not the case now.
No, it's different.
We know that it's really a person in there, a baby in there. And God said it all along, right? I mean, God has been very pointed about that. When he referred to Jesus, he said the seed that's in your belly, talking to Mary, is going to save the people from their sins. And when Jesus shows up at Elizabeth's house, Mary shows up at Elizabeth's house, a 6-month fetus is the first one to praise God.
The baby leaped in her womb.
Yeah, the babe leaped in her womb. Same word for Jesus when he was a seed.
Yeah, right.
Jesus is brand new. In the zygote, embryonic process,
right,
of coming into humanity. But John is 6 months along, and the babe word there in Greek, same word as the seed in your womb. Same words. Left in her womb. So the first person to praise Jesus was a baby.
In the womb.
It's
powerful.
And so it looks like we're going to overturn Roe versus Wade. I mean, I hope that we do. Now, we're going to talk about some tough things today. And so anybody that's listening, we want you to understand that we never, ever have an agenda with politics, race, or any kind of current political climate thing, because politics, all those things are just designed to divide us.
Yeah, and we purposely leave them out of the pulpit, and most of the time leave it out of the podcast. But sometimes those things just they subliminally bleed in, and a lot of times it's because it's what's on people's mind.
You will only hear politics in this podcast if you're looking for it.
That's right. Because
my motives have nothing to do with whether you're a donkey or an elephant.
Yeah, that's right. And we support women, we support mamas, and we support babies. We support life. And so there's value in all of it. And so but you're also going to hear things today, like you're going to hear perspectives from those mamas. You're going to get to hear from abortion, mothers, and from and so we want you to hear some of those things and numbers. And numbers. That's right.
So here's the thing about numbers, Bob. Numbers have no emotional attachment.
Right.
So if you have $1,000 in your bank account and you've got $1,500 in bills, no matter how much you want, no matter how much you wish, no matter how you can borrow from Peter to pay Paul, maybe you can pay this one this week, that one next week, kick the can down the road. If your numbers do not match what's going out versus what's coming in, you will not be able to pay your bills, period. There's no emotion in that.
Right.
And so if your cup can physically only hold 16 ounces of water, no matter how much you want, you cannot put 17 ounces of water in that cup. It's just numbers.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about some things today we're going to use Scripture to support these things, but we want you to understand that there's a whole group of people out there that are just bought into the devil's lie. And that's what we got to see it as. It's not that the people are bad. It's just that they've been duped.
Yeah, that's right. And so I think I got a good way that we can kind of start into this and look at some of the numbers. And so there was a survey that was done about post-abortion women on the abortion counseling that they had. And so this article was from the Center of Bioethical Reform, and the results of this survey are pretty they're pretty interesting. And so this survey was given to post-abortion women, and so I just want to give you a couple of these things. So here was a question on there. What was your opinion about the nature of the fetus before your abortion? 26% of those ladies thought that it was human. Beforehand. Question, what is your opinion about the nature of the fetus after your abortion? 97% thought they were human.
Wonder what changed.
None of them gave an answer says that it's non-human. 3% had no answer.
You know what that was, Bob? It was faith becoming sight. Somebody had sold them on the idea that it wasn't real. And then when it became sight,
that's right.
What a terror to live in that wake.
And so you talked about the lie that Satan wants to hear and it wants us to hear and wants these mamas to hear is, he says, were you given information about the biological nature of the fetus? 93% of the women said no. I was not given any biological nature about it.
Why do you think they did that for?
I mean,
there's an inherent understanding, whether we even understand the term for murder. Like, we may not know what to call it. We may have a different word for it, different language, different word. But there's an inherent understanding morally across the board, no matter what your situation is. If me and you live on an island and somebody comes along and chops one of us up, and I come back and I don't even know what to call it, I will realize inherently that there's something wrong with that. There's something that's in us, this moral compass, that we know that murder's wrong. So if we attach to it.
If you attach a heartbeat to it.
Oh, man. Like here's something interesting. And I don't want to go down a rabbit trail with this, but I've seen studies where we've done these. You build a robot that looks human, right? And this little robot does these humanoid type things. It maybe brings you food, maybe it plays with your kids, maybe it paints with you or something like that. And then you take a guy and take a ball bat and beat that robot to pieces, Or you take one of those little robots that just weld, on a car assembly line, right? Just weld joints together, All it's going to do, next car comes along, weld that joint. Next come along, weld that joint. Articulates out of the way, comes back. It's just programmed to perform this task, right? Mm-hmm. Always once they see the humanization of something, that you ask them, should he have done that? They will say no. The majority of the people will say you shouldn't have beat that robot to death. That if you take a ball bat and you beat the one over here, that's just making welds, or you take it one step backwards. Your robot now only does one thing, and it washes your clothes. It's just a machine that's designed to do something, right? You push the button, you with your series of commands, you can get it to do a task for you. Somebody beats that machine with a bat. I mean, it may think you're crazy, but there will be no emotion in that you committed a moral crime. But once they attach emotion to it, once this robot can show emotions, when we anthropomorphize, that's the word, we make it humanized. Once we do that, then there's in our mind, there's a shift. There's a moral shift, and that shows that morality is inherent to all people. Now that robot is just parts. I could make that robot out of whatever. You hand me the print, eventually we can end up with that robot.
Right.
But it's nothing but a pile of junk when it starts, and it won't be nothing but a pile of junk if you beat it to death. You see, the reason why they don't give this information out to them is because then they'll attach humanization to it.
That's right.
And with that, there comes a tremendous weight that we all understand, and that's why these ladies afterwards, why do you think there's so much counseling that needs to be had for this for?
Yeah, and I mean, I've counseled mothers who've had abortions. I mean, in this church. So just think about, so tell me some of the things that they say. Well, the one was, teaching the gospel. This is, she wasn't a member of the church at the time when I found out about her abortion, but I was just studying with her for a long time, and then there was just always something holding her back, and I just didn't know what it was. And So I just asked her, I was like, why are you waiting? Like, what's holding you back? Like, we've gone over all these things. And this was like our 10th time, like, studying together. And she just, I mean, them big old alligator tears started rolling. And she just said, God will never forgive me. And I said, what? And she said, I killed my baby. And, man, that was a tough. And, as I talked to her, the story of the Apostle Paul is so powerful, like the way the Spirit. And anyway, she, God can forgive you, and there's so much power in that, and that was her biggest thing. That was like God will never forgive me because I killed my child.
That's still Satan's lie.
Still Satan's lie.
So he gets you in the frying pan, and then he just turns up the fire.
Yeah.
Because really what Paul's talking about there is like, hey, guys, I stood around and I held the clothes while they stoned Stephen.
That's right.
I consented unto his death. I was the one that said, hey, we need to do this. And so Paul, he says, listen, I'm the chief of all sinners.
Yeah.
He could look at himself, but what a blessing it'll be when Stephen met Paul in heaven.
That's right. And the power in it too is like a lot of these people that say, well, if you're against abortion, then you're against a woman's right to choose, and that's just not the case. Like, they just say, well, you don't care about women's rights, and most of those people who are screaming about women's rights are also screaming that a man can swim against that woman, and that's fair, in the SEC. But also, like, that girl has had a lot of challenges in her life, and even, after her baptism. But, she's somebody who my wife has just relentlessly pursued, like, just trying to encourage her and everything. And one of her, one of her children, when we were asking, the kids who we want to invite, Coleman said, I want to invite such and such, this boy's name. And that just, it keyed something back in my wife, like, I got to reach back out to her again. And they were at church.
Well,
they were at church recently. And
so the world sees it as a fact of them saying, I want to do this thing. I want to do this thing, but you think it's wrong. And you're like, well, yeah, I do. And they say, well, it's because you're trying to control me or something like that. No, it's you're free to do whatever you wish. But
it's our job as a church to be the watchman of the day, like Ezekiel.
Yeah, you think it's wrong. Yes, I think it's wrong, but it's not because I think it's wrong. It's because I want what's best for you.
Yeah.
And so you just numbers, okay? Mm-hmm. Just numbers statistically, all right? I've got numbers here. Now, I used their websites because I wanted to make sure that I used Planned Parenthood and these websites like this so that I could get their numbers, right? Not
it's as accurate as you can get.
Yeah, because I didn't want it to believe people to believe that there's some
Chris
kind
has got some padded numbers that are out there.
Right. So here is the average person seeking an abortion, okay, by the numbers. The average person seeking an abortion is already a mother, 59%.
See, that's just you wouldn't think. I mean, I wouldn't think that it would be that way.
That's their numbers, and it'll be, if you give me a minute, it'll make sense why. Yeah. She's in her late 20s, 57%. Attended some college, is low income, unmarried. In her first 6 weeks of pregnancy, that's 85%, by the way, that are in their first 6 weeks of pregnancy.
First 6 weeks or 6 months?
6 weeks.
Okay.
85% are in their first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And the average person getting an abortion is having their first one. And they live in a blue state. So these are the reasons why they're citing it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying these are the reasons, okay? Mm-hmm. The reasons why they're citing it is because, number one, the primary reason, I can't afford a baby right now. Well, it's because they've attended some college, didn't finish. They have low income.
Mm-hmm.
They're unmarried. It will be a burden to their financial well-being. I read quotes when I was doing some research for this that some people went as far as to even say, I did it because I knew that I wouldn't be able to pay for it and I didn't want it to be a burden on society. Mm-hmm. I knew that if I had a baby, I'm barely hanging on now, that another mouth to feed would require me to receive government assistance in some kind of way. And so 60% were 200%. Let's make sure you understand what low income means. 200% below the poverty level.
So 60% of the women who chose to have an abortion were 200% below the poverty level.
200% below the poverty level. So you think about all these challenges, right? Now, we may herald, we're in the South. We may think, well, what a great thing that all those things are happening in the blue states. Well, the rate of single parent pregnancies are consistent across the population.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is in the South is that we have historically held to more Judeo-Christian values.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore there is still a stigma attached with abortion. But what happens is the worst place literally a child can be born into, statistically speaking, is a single-parent home. Single-parent homes, 70% of all in-state juvenile detention centers where they're serving long sentences, right? Not just a bar fight or something like that. We can't go to bar juvenile, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
70% of them were by single parents. 63% of all suicides amongst youth are from single-parent homes. 70% of all teen pregnancies are in single-parent homes. 71% of all adolescent chemical abusers come from single-parent homes. 80% of all prison mates at large, not youth, 80% of all prison inmates say that they're from a single-parent home. 90% of all homeless and runaway children came from single-parent homes. 90%. I have asked many, many, many times the people in our benevolence program that are homeless.
Mm-hmm.
I have never had anybody say that they grew up with their biological mother and father. Never had anybody tell me. Now, I'm not saying that they don't exist. I don't ask them all.
Yeah.
But I've never asked one that they said, oh, yeah, my mom and daddy were there for me my whole life, whatever the case may be. So let's just talk about the numbers then, the layer of this.
Yeah, so those numbers are pretty compelling, and you think like it's almost like they're trying to make a moral decision of saying it's better off if I didn't have the baby. Well,
they're not a moral, maybe that's the way you could say it. But in my mind, they're trying to pick the lesser of the two evils.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so they're trying to weigh an immoral decision. Which one is the most immoral thing to do? And so,
yeah, and it's like, well, if I can terminate it within the first 6 weeks, then it's not. There's this detraction away from it being a human life at that point.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it
in people's minds. And just before you go any further, like I've worked a lot of deaths in my career and a lot of funerals, but you can be brain dead, but you still alive because your heart's still beating. But you can't be heart dead and still be alive. There has to be a heartbeat for there to be life, and so there's a guy who I was in a pursuit of years ago. I'm not even going to mention a name or whatever. I was, long distance behind him. He was just driving all over the road, and anyways, he wrecked out himself and ejected himself out of the car, and he rolled like 7 times going down the highway like 70 miles an hour. Anyways, I opened up his airway, and he took this big old breath in. Well, he's a vegetable today. His parents kept him alive. But, I mean, they just got him. They've just they just got him in some home
facility
or whatever, and he's brain dead, but his heart's still beating. And so the heart.
So let's ask ourselves a moral question. If you went in there and strangled him, right?
Mm-hmm.
You went in there and strangled him, put your hands around his neck and strangled him, or you went in there and chopped him up, took an axe, chopped him into pieces, or you took him and you put him in a tank and drowned him full of saline solution, would that be immoral?
Absolutely.
He has no brain function at all.
That's right. And he laid there lifeless, like on the side of the highway, and I went over there. This is the first night my younger brother was doing a ride-along with me, too, by the way. It's like, welcome to my job. And but I went over there to him, and he's not breathing or anything. And, I mean, I just saw all this happen, got it on video and everything. And you know, I just simply opened up his airway and this big old breath. Well, the body still knew to breathe, even though the brain was dead. And so, anyways, long story short, like, this, the heart begins beating at 21 days after conception.
So then we're in the same situation.
Yeah. So before a woman even knows that she's missed her menstrual cycle, the heart's already beating inside of her. And at the date of conception, the baby has its own DNA code, separate from the mother
And father.
Totally separate from. But I mean, the baby's attached to the mom at that point, so it has its own DNA code and has its own heartbeat before she ever realizes she missed her period.
What do they look for? You know, they take the first little, you know, when y'all did your little ultrasound, and
the little got peanut and the little hearts.
Right. Yeah, that thing's running like a rabbit with the hiccups.
And that's right? That's what a doctor is looking for.
There's that if the baby is viable, they say, if it's not, they say we don't detect the what?
A heartbeat. We don't detect life. We don't detect the heartbeat. Now you think about that. Now you take this, and I'm sorry for the family, but you take that boy and you put him in a tank, let him suffocate. I take an axe and chop him up and pull his parts out, or I just strangle him, right? Or what if I just take a pair of scissors and reach through and through his spinal cord and cut his spinal cord? Would all those things be considered immoral? Even though that guy's not alive, mentally, right?
Would that be immoral?
Absolutely, they would say.
Why is it then? Why is it then? It's different in the uterus for.
It's just because it's Satan's lie. It's like Satan's lie, and it's a detachment in their mind because I can't see it, and so if they saw it, it would be reality to them. And I know there's a lot of live pregnancy centers that are faith based, and I've talked to the ladies who donate their time. These women donate their times to give free ultrasounds to these women. And they say, if I can get them to see a heartbeat on an ultrasound, it's like 80 to 85% difference.
Jessica and I was teaching a guy the gospel, and you know him. The guy that we went to see when y'all came to Lynchburg. Remember that guy?
Oh, yeah.
We were teaching him the gospel, and one of his baby's mamas was just really
that guy.
Yeah,
we went and saw a couple of different ones. Not the Hispanic, the
other guy.
Yeah.
And so his wife, his baby mama, one of his, you know, he had a couple of kids out of wedlock, and he was trying to get his kids custody, and he was trying to do the right thing, and she was making it so hard on him. And I remember, like, Jessica and I talked about adoption, you know, just to help some of the kids out that were, you know, that you knew that would never have the chances. And we wanted to at least maybe think about just bringing one into a Christian home.
Mm-hmm.
And so we never decided to take that option. But I remember this day that he told me, he's like, I got to go pick up my son, and because his mama is pregnant and she's going to Roanoke to have an abortion.
Mm.
And I told Jessica, I was like, we're not going to study with him tonight because of this. And she said, call him, tell her we'll pay for it all. Tell her that everything, all the costs associated, everything that happens from now until the baby comes, we'll pay for it all and we'll take it. We'll take the baby. I said, are you sure? She said, it's life or death, Chris. She said, we'll take it. Now, She didn't take the option, unfortunately. But I remember in my mind, you know, it's Jessica, to her, it was a burning building scenario.
You're right.
You know, you've got the fire hose and you hear somebody screaming. We're not talking about one that's fallen down, right? We're talking about one that you can actually put that fire out and save them. In her mind, it was, we've got to save them. So you think about some of these things, Bob. Man, what is our responsibility as Christians then? Well, you know, Paul told Timothy to preach the word in season, out of season, with all long suffering, reprove, rebuke, exhort, all these things he kind of goes through there with him. And, you know, there will always be an evolution to the devil's lie. Because it's not a life, it's okay to kill it. Is it okay to squish a bug? Yes. Right? Mm-hmm. Is it okay to cut your fingernail off? Yes. Right? You cut your fingernails, right? That's okay. Is it okay if a part of you need to cut your hair, right? That's the way that they would categorize it, that it's not actually a life. Well, Misty Dawn, she's not here because that lie's been put away. Mm-hmm. So then we're fed another lie now. It's my body, it's my choice. And so what we've got to understand is that this lie, this whatever the devil's going to come up with next will always be there, Bob. So we will never be able to fill in the line and say, it's a life. That's fine. Let's say we beat that hurdle completely. Mm-hmm. There will be something else that comes in. So what we've got to be doing, more than anything, is helping people see how blessed it is to have an abundant life.
Yeah, listen up, church. Go ahead.
Because if you have this, if we're trying to combat the lie that the devil's feeding us today, he will come up with a new one tomorrow. And so what we've got to be able to do is let people see that there's a greatness in doing things God's way, that your life can be different. And I understand that you've made some mistakes, and I sympathize with you. I've made mistakes too. There's nobody out there that's ever tasted the peaceful, sweet blood of Jesus and said, I'm so thankful that you've done that, and I don't want you to do it for anybody else. But I want everybody else to know that. And so what we've got to be able to see is that the devil will always evolve his lie. So the next one, I don't know what it will be. We're at the point now, you mentioned swimming, the boys swimming with the girls. Do you think we'd ever be fighting about this lie? No, because it's always going to be evolutionary. What we've got to get people to see is there's something real special with life. There's just something real special with life. And so if we can get people to see that a soul, the reason why God puts so much value on us is because we're a soul that has a power to make a decision. And so Satan uses God's law, my body, my choice. That's right. God said, it's your body, it's your choice. Satan's telling him the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's your body, it's your choice. No doubt about it. But what we've got to get him to see is it's not your choice. It's your responsibility.
And that's powerful. And when that comes to when you think about all these single parent homes, and let's say you talked about this very, very well Sunday morning, that let's say Roe versus Wade gets overturned. We want it that way.
Yeah, imagine being upset because we can't kill babies. Yeah, let's overturn it.
And I mean, and I'm really afraid that like our generation, that like we're going to be known as the baby killers.
And Bob, I just want you to think about something. There's just certain things we're going to look back on historically, like evolution. Mm-hmm. It cannot be proved, right? We will look back historically and realize there was a fallacy in it when something else comes along.
Yeah.
The Greeks believed that we sat on the back of a turtle or Atlas, right?
Yeah.
And they fully believed that. And we look back and say, you're so stupid. We'll do the same thing with evolution. It will evolve and it will go away. We will look, I mean, there are so many post-secular countries, Australia, Ireland, all these countries that are post-Christian secular societies that are outlawing abortion because they realize that inherently there's something special about life. Mm-hmm. There's a moral fiber that holds us together. But we've got to understand what this is going to mean. The Supreme Court is handing it back over to the states, which great, but it's going to cause so much division.
Yeah.
We've got to be able to see that we are standing in the first ripple that will echo through the pond. So what we're going to see is we've fought wars over states' rights before. Mm-hmm. The next one will be over whether we recognize two men as being married. That's what all these things will really come down to if they hand it back to the states.
Right.
And so we're going to have to stand real firm in understanding what God wants us to do. And so we're going to have to realize that it's going to cause division. If we ever had division, it's going to be worse. All the states that have said already we're going to be
pro-life or pro-choice.
Yeah, pro-choice sanctuaries, right? Mm-hmm. Like my county, when Virginia started making a lot of progressive policies, mm-hmm. my county in Virginia was the first one in America to declare itself a Second Amendment sanctuary.
Yeah.
They said we don't. If you take away our right to keep and bear arms, we are perfectly fine with not having any more federal or state money. Period. We'll take care of ourselves. But it's more important that we take care of ourselves than you taking care of us and us not being able to defend ourselves from you. Mm-hmm. And so we've got to realize that there will be division that comes from this. There will be people that think that we're in the wrong, that we've got this old Bronze Age book that's dictating our lives, and it's freeing us. And so there's going to be division that's going to come from this. You take all those people, Bob, if it's from, I've read numbers from 50 to 75 million abortions have been performed, and I can't wade through it and figure it out clear enough just from their numbers.
No, and like I saw a site that, from the U.S. from 1973 to 2018, been roughly 61.8 million.
Yeah,
whatever.
And I've seen it as high as 70, mm-hmm. right? And so I don't know where we're at, but let's use 60, okay? Yeah. At 60 million people, 60 million abortions, if half of those are from single parents, according to the statistics, and 70% of those will end up on government assistance. So half of 60 million is 30 million. Mm-hmm. 70% of 30 million is then 21 million people. 21 million people from 1973. If each one of those have 3 children, which is the average rate of breeding that we do, 2.7 kids, right? Everybody has 2.7 kids in America. Mm-hmm. If you have 2.7 kids, you're instantly putting 100 million people 200% below the poverty level. You're instantly putting 100 million people on the backbone of the government to take care of. That's what you're doing with that. So we've got to understand that we have got to do away with it, period. Mm-hmm. It's got to go away.
Right, but there are going to be repercussions, and that's something that every Christian needs to you need to look up, and you need to say, hey, what am I going to do in this responsibility? Because, as you said Sunday, the government, it was never in the intention for the government to take care of the people.
Let's just read the Bible verses then.
Yeah.
Let's look at Romans chapter 13.
Well, here's the other thing, Chris. These are the number of abortions that are reported.
Yes.
The 60 million. So it's also roughly every single year by medicine-induced abortions.
Oh, you mean like Plan B pill and stuff like that?
There's roughly like 14 million a year.
Yeah, so just run those numbers, Bob. We're into I'm just using bare statistics, okay?
Yeah.
Look at Romans 13. Romans 13, because we got to be real careful in saying the government ought to do something about this.
You talking about for the Christian to say the government ought to do something about this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Romans 13 says, let every soul, verse 3, let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and by authorities that exist are appointed by God. So whether or not you like Biden as president, God put him there. Whether or not you like Trump, God put him there. Whether you liked Obama or Bush or Clinton or Bush or Reagan or Carter, how far back do we need to go? Yeah. Right? They were all put there by God.
Keep going, Chris. Can you name more?
I can, but we may fall off the wagon.
Yeah. They're appointed by God. Period.
Therefore, whoever resists authority resists ordinances of God, and those who resist will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to do good works. They're not a terror to do good works. Whose job?
They're not a terror to good works. They're not a terror to the people who do good works.
That's right. They're not a terror to good works, right? We're going to look at that again. Peter explains it a little bit clearer. But to evil. What does that mean? Do you want to be unafraid of authority? Do what is good, and you will have the praise from the same. For he is God's minister for you for good. But if you do evil, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. He is God's minister and avenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil. Mm-hmm. Therefore you must be subject not only because of wrath, but also for conscience sake. So, 1 Peter 2, 13 and 14. First Peter 2, 13 and 14. Therefore submit yourself to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether it's to king as supreme, or to governors as to those who are sent by him. The reason? For punishment of evildoers and for the praise of those who do good. So the only function and job of the government is this one thing: maintain order, and that's it. Maintain order, and that's it.
Punishment of evildoers.
Jesus,
and for the praise of those who do good.
Jesus uses these powerful illustrations about Judgment Day. That, listen, you want to know how you're going to be judged and be okay? This old boy over here that needed something to drink, did you get him something? This person over here that didn't have any, did you put any clothes on him?
Did you visit that person in prison?
Yeah, this boy's locked up over here for no reason. Did you go see him? Those are the questions you ask yourself. James says, you want to know what you really want to define pure religion? You really want to know what it looks like?
Visit widows and orphans.
The fatherless and orphans, and keep yourself unspotted from the world. You know what that means, Bob? That the reason why we don't have huge swaths of orphanages and children's homes and everything today is because we're killing them. Mm-hmm. That's why we don't have them. You know, we like to think in the South that we're so much better because we don't have all the abortions down here. We got the same problem, the reason why they're having them.
This is why there's roughly, there's not these big orphanages anymore.
That's right. Because this is the reason why, Bob, because we can eliminate it before it gets here.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I've spent the last 2 weeks since we decided we were going to talk about this, scouring the internet for this article that I've got a copy to that you can't even find anymore. Okay? You can't even find this article anymore. I don't know how they took it off the internet, but it is not there anymore. February of 2013, the Journal of Medical Ethics has an article. You can look up the magazine and find it, but that's the only way you're going to do it now. Because you can't find it anymore. When somebody told this several years ago, I went and looked it up, and there it was, but you cannot find it anymore. But they got an article on there that says we are going to now need to have the discussion to talk about this one word, post-birth abortions. Post-birth abortions. We don't want to call them euthanasia because there's such a stigma attached to that. Mm-hmm. So, Bob, do you know what age they want to allow do you know how far past the birth moment that they want to allow abortions for?
2 years old.
2 years old. Man. Like, we were eating supper with Brad and Lauren, and I said, how old's Porter? And they said 25 months. And I said, he's 1 month safe. He was talking to us a month ago.
And Porter, I got a video from his grandpa from Sunday night. You know, we did our singing night. And Porter's turning the pages of the Bible, turning the pages of a songbook, singing. You can hear the church singing in the background. Jesus is Lord, my Redeemer, how He loves me, and Porter's sitting there singing, turning in the pages of his songbook, and so you think about like a baby with that kind of rationalization. A month ago, I was digging in his front yard with a tractor, and he's going, Bob, tractor, and when he's coming, so he's 2 years old at that point. When he comes to, I said, Porter, you want to come ride? He gets on the tractor with me, and he's like, no, Mama, no,
he's scared
Mama.
all of a sudden.
But he thought I was going to drive off with him. I never thought there'd be a day that we would have to protest, that we'd have to bring our 2-year-olds and stand to protest.
Bob, I saw an article the other day that was talking about these leaders of faith leaders that were glad for this abortion bill where they're at to pass.
Are you serious?
I'm not kidding you. They were there in their, like, I don't even know what you call them. You know, what's that robe
the
thing?
Collars and
what's
robes
that thing you
and
wear
whatever
on Sunday called when you're preaching?
Yeah, I got one on for sure, right?
I don't, but you know what I'm talking about. They were there in all their religious regalia, and they were supporting, and they were smiling they were grinning like a possum chewing briars, talking about what a great thing this is. And Bob, you think about this. That means that what they're wanting to welcome the door to is that there's a lady that's got a child that's 23 months old in their congregation. This week he's in Sunday school. Next week week he's not. You know why? Where's he at? Oh, we took care of him.
Mm-hmm.
We aborted him, Bob.
We euthanized him.
We euthanized him. So just Bob, I just want us to understand that Satan will always have a new lie to tell us.
There's more rights today for a dog in America than there is for an unborn baby.
Yeah, you take a dog. I mean, you just think about our Pedal Neighborhood group. I mean, like every fourth post is somebody's dog. Somebody shot somebody's cat the other night, and there was 100 people going on about how bad it was for their cat to get shot. Well, I'm sorry your cat got shot, and that's a terrible thing. And I'm sure you're real attached to your cat. But at the end of the day, we never talk about this. So what we need to be talking about, Bob, is some fundamental things. The home.
Yeah.
The home, Bob. That's where we're struggling at, is the home.
Hey, there's a guy he's a big YouTuber or whatever, he gets a lot of hate from a lot of people. He's a black man and was a police officer. His name's Officer Tatum. And literally, like, there's people who won't listen to him because he's black and because he's got conservative Christian values. Mm-hmm. Anyways, he's got shirts, and he's doing this campaign, Fathers Matter.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is what he's like, if you really want to reform America, he's like, step up and be a daddy.
And that is, so we got to understand, it's not. So the Lord can use the home as a model of the church. Mm-hmm. He can call us a family. Do you know that Christians in the first century were accused of incest because they saw a brother and a sister that were husband and wife? Brother, if I said you take Sister Jessica, I'm talking about a wife. They were accused of incest because they instantly saw themselves as a family.
Yeah.
Bob, it was such an important thing to understand the family. So when these things are happening, divorce, this homosexual agenda, abortion, all this stuff is about attacking the family, because if we can destroy what the family looks like, then we get to rewrite what the church is supposed to be like in people's minds. Yeah. And so ultimately, you want to fix the problem, you start at home.
Amen.
So you get at home and you take the real reason why young ladies and young men are doing these things. You've got to talk about them, Bob. You've got to talk about them. You've got to not only talk about them, but there's got to be discipline that comes with this. Mm-hmm. They've got to understand that there's consequences. If we remove the consequences of our actions, we then remove the reason why people would not do them. The reason why somebody doesn't come in my house at night is because they don't know that I've got guns. They suspect I've got guns in my house. Mm-hmm. The reason why people won't commit certain crimes is because of the death penalty. There are certain crimes that will carry such weight.
There's consequences.
There are consequences, but when we remove them and we listen to the lie of the devil, we remove all the things that God's trying to help us all be better with. This John 10:10. The thief comes to kill, to steal, and destroy. Bob, I want you to understand that word thief there in Greek is klepteo.
What's that one mean?
That's where we get our word kleptomaniac from. You know what a kleptomaniac is?
No.
You're a terrible cop. It's somebody that cannot resist stealing. It's somebody that cannot resist stealing. They have a psychological urge to steal. He says the kleptomaniac comes, the one that can't resist but to steal, kill, and destroy.
That's Satan's number one mission statement.
But I've come that they may have life, and life more abundantly. As a matter of fact, in Ephesians 4, in verse 32, he uses that word, let him who stole
steal no longer.
Steal no more. That was, the stole is the lifestyle. Let him that had this lifestyle of thievery not do that anymore, but rather let him labor with his hands that which is good to provide those to them that have need. The thief, Bob, he cannot not control himself. It's not that he has this wicked, sitting back, calculated plan that he's just got his sights set on Bob. What he's got is it's of his own compulsion. In John 8, Jesus uses this very poetic phrase, "You're of your father, the devil. For he's a liar and the originator of all wrong." It's because it starts with him. So anything that's against what God tells us, it's not from God. There's no moral cause that we can come up with and say, it's a great thing that I'm doing this. that I'm killing my baby. There's no great thing that I can say or do.
No.
That's from the Satan. That's from our adversary, from our enemy.
Yeah, because God is very clear about life beginning in the womb. I mean, it's just all over the Bible. Isaiah 49, the Lord has called me from my womb, from the matrix of my mother. He has made mention of my name. Isaiah 49:5, and now the Lord says, who formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him, so that Israel is gathered to him. For I shall be glorious in the eyes of the Lord, and my God shall be my strength. And you think about Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you as a prophet to the nations. And so life begins in the womb. And you talked about numbers are kind of detachment for people, like there's not an emotional attachment. But I just want to point out a couple things from the latest numbers that I've seen is this. You think about 9/11. There were 2,900 and I think 77 people that died in 9/11. When the towers fell. Terrorist attack. In America, there's 2,362 abortions a day that's reported. We're only like 600 something shy of having a 9/11 every single day. There's 98 from the time this podcast, from the time that somebody's going to quit listening to this podcast. There's been 98 abortions that have happened. There's one abortion every 37 seconds.
So now we need to talk about what's our response to it, Bob.
That's right, because you think about the wall that's there in Washington D.C. You ever been to D.C. and visited the Vietnam Wall?
Yeah, 57,000 people.
58,000 something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We have a Vietnam Wall should be put up every 21 days in America on abortion.
Let's look at 2 verses, okay? Because now I don't want anybody to leave here thinking we're talking about how bad it is without a way to solve it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's look at 2 verses. Let's go look at Philippians 2.
Yeah, it's like a lady came up to us Sunday night and she's like, "Can I suggest something, or can I make a complaint? Only if you give a solution."
Yeah, you mean when she came up talking to us?
Yeah. Only if you can give a solution to the problem.
Right. So Philippians 2, 3 and 4. I want to read this verse and 2 verses. Read this verse and another one before we talk about it. Okay.
All right.
Philippians 2, 3 and 4. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others. Let's look at 1 John 3 and verse 17. But whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and shuts up his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him? So now let's think about this 2 on top of each other.
Yeah, add to that 18. My little children, because I think I know where you're going with this. Let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth.
Because we can talk about all the evils, all the wrongs, but Bob,
what's the church going to do about it?
What are we going to do? What's it going to look like on Monday? You know, it's real easy for me to talk about what's wrong, but it's real hard for me to move my feet.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so glad that we have so many great brothers and sisters here that want to serve and make an impact in their area wherever they're at. We've got to be pointed in understanding that the reason why there's been an option on the table for abortion is because there's been some things that's happened. There's been a stigma attached to unwed mothers, right? So, shotgun weddings, right? Where does that come from?
Oh, yeah.
And 2 wrongs don't make a right. Just because you make that mistake, that does not mean that you need to make another one, because marriage is for life, right? So we've got to help people. We've got to be there for people when they make these mistakes.
I've had those conversations with mothers and saying, listen, don't marry him just because y'all are having a baby.
Absolutely.
You made one mistake. Don't make another one.
That's right. And so then on top of that, let's just say that we've got a baby here. Mm-hmm. It may be time for us to start opening orphanages again.
That's right. And one thing that I do love, and I've seen it in the church in 30 years, when those babies even, and I know there's probably times whenever whenever a mama might get shunned on or looked down upon because she got pregnant, out of wedlock. And no doubt that there's probably some people who would. But I'm going to tell you, there's been so much evidence that I've seen that the church loving those mamas and helping them with those babies. And
let me tell you something, Bob. You've got a scriptural responsibility to do that.
That's right.
Because the responsibility is not the baby's fault. I mean, the consequences is the mother did something wrong. So mother needs to deal with the consequences of her sin. Mm-hmm. But the result of
her
is
choosing life
is a baby now, right? So we've got to, whatever that means. I've got to help, Bob. When we go over to the school, none of them kids over there have any idea how to get out of poverty.
They don't know how.
They don't even know the questions to ask. Do you understand that?
Yeah, you can see it in the questions that we ask and their responses. Like it's just like deer in the headlights.
Yeah, they have no idea. So it's just like me handing my grandpa my phone and saying make a phone call. Mm-hmm. He's not going to have any. We call this a phone, but it's very small percentage of what we use it for is a phone.
Right.
He will not He don't even know the questions to ask. How do you do it? What do you do, right? Where's the phone at on this? He will not even, of course, he's dead now. They died before these things came out. But, see, that's the thing is that we've got to, if these kids are going to be bound for poverty, we're going to shackle and I met with my financial advisor yesterday, and it was a sad meeting. Mm-hmm. He said, but know this, you're in the same boat as everybody else in America.
Chris took his money out of Twitter. Just kidding.
I did take it out of AT&T. But we sat and we had this meeting, and it was it wasn't a sad meeting in the sense like I said I'm going to funnel you more money now. I need to get you more money so that we can buy right now while everything is rock bottom. Mm-hmm. But you think about what it would do to society if all of a sudden our consuming power was spent then and distributed back on 100 million more people that we need to take care of because the government's going to rob us to take care of them. That's never their job. It's ours, Bob. So we've got to help, and we've got to let these people see that hey, let me tell you, if you're a mechanic, teach some poor kid how to work on your car. Mm-hmm. If he's
on your street.
Yeah, if you know how to cut grass, you take that poor kid down the road and help him cut grass.
You want that kid to quit playing loud music in your neighborhood, build a relationship with him.
Yeah, you
teach him how to do something.
That's right. You want her to be a good mama down the road that's in has made a sinful decision and got a baby.
Don't yell and scream at her.
That's right. You take her and you say, hey, why don't you come over and help me? Why don't you come over and I'd like to teach you how to make biscuits. Mm-hmm. You see, there's just such Dorcas was raised from the dead because she made britches.
But too many people were like, we can't. How amazing would that be?
Dorcas was raised from the dead because she made clothes, Bob.
Yeah.
We think that's a petty thing. It was good enough for them to go get an apostle.
The church is like, hey, we need this person back.
Go get him and bring her back.
That's the abundant life.
That's the abundant life. So do you suppose you have this world's goods? You set up in your ivory towers and you look down and say, look at all these poor, stupid people. Where does the love of Christ abide in you then? The Bible says don't do anything with selfish ambition. That's really a political term that you're doing something because you're trying to seek, you're stepping on somebody to get somewhere else. Booker T. Washington said you cannot hold a man down unless you stand there with him.
If the church really wants Roe versus Wade to be overturned, you better start being the church, and you better get ready to be more benevolent. This is the Unscripted Podcast.